You already know who I'm talking about. You don't really need to describe them. There's someone that is in your practice that you need to have a hard conversation with. Now, maybe it's been 2 days, maybe it's been 2 weeks. I hope it hasn't been 2 months that this person has been coming to your mind, knowing that you need to sit down and reset your expectations and your standards. You know, you think about this person, you come into the practice, pumped up to talk to them, you see them, the situation maybe isn't perfect, and you say, maybe tomorrow, I'll talk to them tomorrow. If that's the case, this video is for you. I'm gonna go through a framework that will help you have this conversation and make it easy for you to uphold the standards of your practice. So follow along here, let's go. I wanna start with the not so obvious cost of waiting to have the hard conversation. It's not necessarily the effect of your Google reviews or the patient complaints or the tension in morning huddle. I want to talk about a cost that you might not be aware of. Now, I'm reading a book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, and you've probably heard of the compound effect, where a lot of people talk about it in investing, where if you keep investing consistently, you know, the interest rate will compound and multiply your results over time. Well, the same thing happens in your dental practice. If we don't have the hard conversation here, this can happen positively or negatively. Now, Darren Hardy talks about a guy named Big Mo, and this is momentum. The real cost that you're losing if you wait 2 weeks to have a hard conversation is the momentum that your culture and your practice is building. So if you skip the gym for 2 weeks, those inherent losses, you know, maybe aren't that big of a deal. You get back on it and then you're going, your gains will come. But what you lose is your momentum. He gives an example in the book as if you had 2 flights, one from Miami to LA and the other one also from Miami to LA. The one flight, it goes from Miami directly to LA without stopping, is very continuous, has momentum. The other one has stops, periodic stops along the way. Which one is gonna get there first? Obviously the one that has momentum and goes. And the same goes for your practice. Somebody who's not living the behavior and the standard that you have in your practice is stopping momentum. It's hurting other players and other team members of your practice. So every day that person stays the same, or every day nothing changes, your culture is compounding negatively. It's compounding in the wrong direction. Your best people are watching. And I think it was Layla Ramosi that said it. The fastest way to lose your great team players, your great team members, is to keep a bad team member. The fastest way to lose your best team members is to keep a bad one. Those bad ones are toxic, right? And they are watching you. If you're okay with the standard that they're setting, then they're not gonna wanna be there anymore. So think about that. The longer you wait, the worse the impact is compounded onto your practice. The faster you do it, the faster you can get to keep building positive momentum. And here's the thing. This conversation isn't always a firing conversation. It doesn't have to be a termination conversation. It can just be resetting the expectations, laying out what you're seeing and hearing where they're coming from. I'm going to share with you a framework of how to do that today. But it's ultimately up to them to stay on the bus and rise to the level of your standard and your expectation, or go find somewhere else that might be a better fit. So why don't leaders have this hard conversation? Why don't we see a problem and address it immediately? Well, there's something that happens in our biology that stops us from doing so. It's really interesting to see someone who is a dentist making, you know, high value or high stakes clinical decisions every single day. But when it comes to having a hard conversation, they anticipate that it will be contentious. They're anxious that it will be a social conflict. They put it off. You know, I've been in that situation where I know something needs to happen, but when you imagine yourself sitting in front of them, letting them know these things, your brain comes up with all sorts of reasons and justifications not to have the conversation. And it really is almost a flight or fight response that your body gives. Your cortisol levels rise. Part of the brain that's responsible for rational thinking goes partially offline. And it's documented. It's not a personality flaw. This is biology. It happens. Our brain perceives this conversation really as a physical threat, but it's not. And the more you have these conversations, the more you realize that, okay, that is what it is. It can be a little scary, but it's the best thing you need to do for your business and for your team and for you as a leader. I'm excited to share with you a couple of ways that you can attack this head on. Before I give you the framework, I want to address 3 things that your brain is telling you that are flat out wrong. Number 1 is that it will resolve itself. I have felt that before. When you see something that maybe a hygienist or a dental assistant and even a front office person is doing, and you're like, well, that might have just been one time and they'll probably figure it out. They're okay. It'll get better on its own. The truth is it won't. They need a leader there to guide them, and to love them enough to tell them what they did isn't how we operate. That is below the standard. Behavior that goes unaddressed will get repeated. And it's every time it gets repeated, there's a consequence. It becomes the new normal. Again, what you tolerate is your culture. And if you tolerate somebody answering the phone a certain way, or a hygienist speaking to a patient a certain way, or a dental assistant not preparing for the doctor to come in, if you tolerate some of these small things, that's going to be your culture, and that's how eventually everybody will do it. So they adjust to it, and your culture gets written by itself, by you thinking it'll get better on its own. Which is, again, it will not get better on its own. Lie number 2 is that it's really not that big of a deal. I'm a huge believer that by small and simple things, great things come to pass. Now let me break that down for you. That goes positively or negatively. If small and simple things that aren't that big of a deal keep happening over time, you'll see a downward spiral in your culture, in your reputation, in your leadership, and in your business. But if by small and simple things that are positive are happening consistently over time, you'll see way better 5-star Google reviews. You'll have a line of people waiting for someone to retire so they can work with you because they know they'll be developed. You'll have patients coming in because your practice and the care that you give is spreading by word of mouth. You'll be giving a world-class patient experience. And so it really is a big deal. Maybe in that moment, it's not a big deal. Over time, the impact that has is a big deal. Number 3, if I have this conversation, it's going to blow everything up. The worst thing is going to happen. Everybody's going to quit, right? Your team already knows. They knew before you did that what this person needed to have a conversation with, right? The team, they're waiting for the conversation to happen. They're waiting to see if you're going to do anything about it. And so this conversation, it doesn't have to create tension. It doesn't have to be contentious. There's a way you can do it where you can talk to somebody out of love, but by setting a higher standard. You're just the one really that needs to end whatever is happening. Okay, so how do you do it? How do you have these conversations? What's the framework? I'm going to give you the framework from a book called Crucial Conversations. This is called the STATE method, S-T-A-T-E. Let me tell you of a practice I walked into some time ago. I was brought on as a director of operations for an $8 million a year specialty practice. And I came in without any dental experience. I was leading a restaurant group, turned one unit into a flagship store where they wanted to train all of their managers in my area at my store. They saw the culture that I built. I was eventually promoted to a tri-state recruiter where I interviewed and hired many, many managers, and I saw patterns of leadership, what worked and what didn't work. And so this practice saw my leadership skills, and they needed that. At the time, they had a manager that was in their office multiple hours a day, building reports, kind of in the books, auditing accounts, while the whole team was left to their own devices. Nobody was held accountable. The spouse of one of the owners came back into the practice and interviewed everybody. And what they found is that accountability was low, nobody was happy, nobody was in charge, everybody was putting blame on everybody else. It was a classic definition of a toxic workplace culture. So they let that manager go, they brought me in. And over the next 12 months, we had many hard conversations and a lot of hard decisions. We terminated 5 people, we brought on 14 people. And I wanted to share with you one conversation that really stuck out to me when it comes to having hard conversations. We had a hygienist that they had brought on. There was 4 hygienists at the time. And this hygienist was receiving some patient complaints, and pretty serious complaints. There was team members complaining, there was patients complaining, right? Several performance improvement plans with them, and nothing really seemed to be getting better. And so the owners decided it was time to move on. Sat down with them and I shared the specific instances. I shared what our expectations were. I've shared kind of how things weren't changing. And she countered and she said, I don't think that's true at all. I think patients love me and I think I'm doing a phenomenal job. And ultimately we had made this decision in unity. And so I just let her know that's probably fine. There's probably many patients that love you. Here we have decided to move forward with the termination, and today will be your last day. They said okay, and they left. The interesting thing is what happened next. And this is the part I want you to hear. 2 of our legacy hygienists were phenomenal. Great patient experience, totally bought into the culture, true leaders in their outright. There was another hygienist that would complain about following policies and procedures or about living the expectations that the one that we terminated. The other hygienist jumped in, conformed, was a leader in her own right, and started excelling. It was phenomenal. It was great to see. The hygiene team went from divided to united almost immediately of the conversation you haven't had yet. It's who they're pulling with them while you wait to have the conversation. So how do you actually do it? So I'm excited to share this framework with you. This framework is from a book called Crucial Conversations, and it's called the STATE method. Write it down right now. It's going to help you be prepared for these hard conversations. I'm going to go through what each letter means. I have it written right here, so if you see me looking down, I'm reading it just so I don't mess it up. So here's how it goes. You share the facts. Don't share your feelings, not really your conclusions, the specific things that you've observed. So, for example, on Tuesday you left 45 minutes early, or I noticed your Thursday notes aren't finished all the way. Or we've had a couple of 3 patient complaints about some of this behavior. So that's S, you're sharing the facts. This matters because the moment you lead with, you've just been sad lately, or you've had a bad attitude lately, you're attacking their character. And so T, tell your story. This is where you share your interpretation. Here's what I've taken away from this, or here's what I've seen from this pattern. It's the conclusion you've drawn, and you're holding it loosely enough to be corrected. I want to take a little break here and share with you, this is where it's so important to be vulnerable. Vulnerability really is a superpower, and it builds bridges, it breaks down walls. If you can be vulnerable with someone, they will be vulnerable with you. If you come at them pretty maybe aggressive, assertive, hey, you always do this, you never do this, kind of those, it's not going to lead to a vulnerable, productive conversation. And so this is kind of the part of vulnerability. ST and then A, ask for their path. You listen clearly here. You might ask something like, help me understand what's going on from your side. Or something like, this is what I'm seeing. How does it feel to you? Is that what you're seeing? Is that accurate? Is that true? Tell me your perspective. Those things. And you might learn something. Probably not something that's going to change the outcome, but sometimes you do. Sometimes it does change the outcome. This question disarms them. It's not defensive anymore, and it shows respect. The next T, talk tentatively. This one trips people up. So talking tentatively doesn't mean being weak. It means language that signals you're open to dialogue. Again, vulnerability language is what I would call it. So in my experience, or from what I've observed, the conclusion I've come to is this. And it's not hedging, but it's just showing that you're presenting your perspective and not handing down a judgment or a sentence, right? And the last thing is E, encourage testing. You genuinely invite them to respond, correct you, or push back. So if I'm missing something I would want to know, most of the time they won't have much, but the invitation shows that you respect them. It changes the conversation from interrogation to really like a real productive conversation. So that's state. I would write it down, put it on a note card, and role play. Role play, role play. Practice this. The more you practice it, the better prepared you will be to have these hard conversations. And you will never walk into a hard conversation unprepared again. I have 3 free resources for you in the description below so that it can help you. One is a hard conversation preparation sheet. It's a sheet that can ask you questions, allow you to role play, so you can be prepared to go into the hard conversation. It's in the description below. Go down, download it for free, yeah, you can have that and it'll help you prepare for your conversations. Second thing is I'm doing a live training. I do one every other Thursday. You can hop into that training and I go in deeper how to tactically apply these and other principles into your practice. It's about 45 minutes, and so go in, you can register for that live masterclass training there. And the third thing is if you want to hop on a quick 15-minute phone call with me for free, I'd be happy to learn of your situation and then just give you some direction and some structure to implementing some of these things. So the link to my calendar is below, and you can click on that and hop on a call with me, and we'd be happy to see how we can help. I'm Blake Pay with Unity Leadership Group, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much.